to the student. So now we get to a scheme. So now we've said that a code is linked to a plan and a scheme is linked to a code. So what is a scheme? A scheme can be used across several evaluation codes. You don't have to have a one-to-one relationship between the two, but in our case, due to the complexity of each plan, we have one code and one scheme which all have a one-to-one relationship. So a scheme can either be automatic, it can make use of a committee or individual evaluators. In our case, we use auto-calculated schemes. You can allow a user to add or remove components to a student's evaluation if you would like to. And I'll show in the next slide, you can have an overall rule as well, which will take the ratings of each individually evaluated item or component, and that will then create an overall score of the evaluation, but it is not necessary to have one. So in the next slide, I'll also show you each component and how it can be manual or automatic. And if automatic is chosen, you don't have to have a rating value, but a rule is mandatory. If you have a manual component, you don't need to have, obviously you don't need a rule, but you will need some rating values for the user to choose from. So yeah, you can see we've got in this scheme for this specific plan, we have 66 different components which are going to be assessed or evaluated for each student. So on the left-hand side, we've got a manual component, and that would mean that when an administrator comes in, they see extracurricular activities, how many points does the student get for that? And they will base that on information that they have. Then on the right-hand side picture, we have an automatic component. This will be based on a rule and it automatically calculates a value. So yeah, we can see that rating values aren't necessary for the automatic, but it is necessary for the manual components. Okay, so now we've spoken a lot about a component, but what is a component? So a component is going to be what you are evaluating. So for example, you would evaluate the student's secondary school marks, maybe their top 5 highest marks added together and divided by 5 to get an average of that. That could be an automatic component, and you would do that through a rule. So the setup of that is pretty easy. All you do is you give it a rating component ID basically, and you give it a name. So now we get to the rules. So as I said, in the secondary school mark rule, we would be able to say what it needs to do. And this image you have in front of you now is an example from the rules engine where we have written a rule with all the different business requirements encapsulated here. As you can see, it's config. It's not necessary for a developer to need to do this. It can be configured by anybody who has that knowledge. So we write the logic of the rule here, and you can then plug it in on the component on the scheme. Okay, so here's a nice example of an evaluation. I have highlighted the interesting bits to show you. So the application data keys over here, you can see that links this evaluation instance. So there's the instance number at the top right corner of the image. And this now links the specific evaluation to this specific application number that you can see in front of you. Then you can upload attachments that are related to this evaluation instance by clicking on the attachments button. And then you can also see that there's a comments box. In this comments box, the administrator can type any comments that they would like to save that is related to this evaluation. And at the bottom, you can see overall rating. And the overall rating will show here if you gave your scheme an overall rule. Okay, but like I said, it's not necessary, so this one doesn't have it. Okay, then on the second page of the evaluation overview, we have the calculated scheme. Here at the top, you would see by ID is the student number, and I have set up related content there. So this is a quick and easy way for you to get to other components in PeopleSoft so that you can just navigate to it for that student from the page you're on. So the very first line, you can see it says population. Is the student a matric or a senior? So matric in our case would be a student who is finishing school or has just finished school. A senior would be a student who has got some experience at a tertiary institution. So this, you can see, was calculated automatically. The student has been made a senior. Just below this, by my other arrow, is the manual components, and this is where the administrator would enter marks for the student based on the different information pieces that they have for the culture and personnel and all of that business. They would enter it here manually. And very important, once it's been entered manually, it would have to be marked as successfully evaluated, just next to where it is, those two little blue blocks with an arrow, with a tick mark. Okay, then just a demonstration as well of the university average. So that's a 777. Now we know that that should be a percentage based on the business requirements, but due to the fact that we can't have any decimal values, we have multiplied the value by 10 in the rule, and that then can be divided by 10 over here for reporting purposes, or if somebody just wants to see what it is, you know that it's divided by 10 to give you 77,7. So that's the workaround for not being allowed to use decimal values. Okay, so Ashley will tell you a bit more about the reports.
Hi everyone. Okay, so we created all our reports using BI Publisher with data obtained from connected queries. As I'm sure many of you know, connected query connects multiple queries together in a parent-child sibling relationship in order to get a data set out that can be used for reporting. It's usually in an XML format, which then can be used in BI Publisher. By using this method, we are able to run the reports overnight, and multiple reports can also be run at the same time, and thus saving business time during the day. Next slide. Okay, so this is an example of one of the reports that we created. As you can see, there are lots of different columns there, and those are the results from various rules that were made and various components. So then also you can see the comment field, and that is from where Siobhan showed you previously, where a user can enter a comment about a certain student. Also, sorry, go back there. Also, you'll notice we can also filter these reports by various criteria, for example, matric and senior, so that the evaluator can compare apples with apples, for example. Okay, next slide. Right, so this is the final summary report. As you can see there, it's divided between, let's say, male and female applicants, senior and matric applicants. You can also see, for example, how many have been disqualified, how many are still in progress, how many cancelled their application, and various other information that can become useful later on.
That's good timing, Siobhan. I see there's 5 minutes left. I was getting nervous there. Hi everyone, this is Ruan. So just a quick point actually here. So Siobhan has given you quite a bit of an overview of EMS, Evaluation Management System, a generic piece of functionality. The point I just want to make here quickly is that obviously after all of this magic has happened within EMS, that needs to end up in the admission stack. Now, in this case, it's the admission stack, but in other cases, there could be other places where it needs to end up. So just to kind of close the loop before I go into some more use cases for EMS, apart from admissions, is just to explain how we then go about updating the admission stack. So it's actually quite simple. So as we know, in campus solutions, there's a lot of configurable processes, and especially for something like population selection, that really does make our lives easier and does make things much more agnostic. So in this case, it's as simple as simply grabbing the information out of EMS and using this well, in this case, the admission stack update process, or the admissions updating process, to then just go and update the admission stack. So that's really how the loop then gets closed eventually, without the need then to customize and further write everything back to the admission stack. So it's really as simple as just a pop select query. Okay, so that was just my 2 cents there. Let's quickly just talk about a bit of the other use cases for EMS. And again, Siobhan has touched base on this, but it's worth emphasizing that, and I like your choice of words, the world is your oyster. That's exactly it. We've seen weird and wonderful uses for EMS, and it really is generic in that sense. So I'm going to quickly share something with you from specifically from UCT, another use case. Obviously, this was now for University of the Free State admissions, just something from UCT where it's also used. But then again, there's a bunch of other uses as well. A client like WITS, for example, University of Witwatersrand, they make use of this in the context of a residence management system that they have within Campus Solutions. And then obviously, let's not forget the original use case for EMS, GRM, Graduate Research Management. And then again, basically anything. And I think this basically anything is exactly how the CRS, I'll explain exactly what that is in a moment, how that actually got kind of started making use of EMS. Right, let me see if I can navigate this. Other way, thank you. Oh, further on, okay.